There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. I am here today with Fractal Authenticity and Phaent Games. We were in the same cabin at Vibecamp, and it was very nice. And now it's been, God, how long has it been now? Like 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's been 2 weeks, and I wanted to talk about how post-Vibecamp integration has been going, or just whatever else comes up out of that. So yeah,
Mm,
how you guys been? What's up?
mm. I've been I've been good. Uh
There's a kitty. Oh, it's
there
so
there's a cat over my right shoulder.
amazing.
He's
Yes.
anxious because it's dinner time in an hour, which means he's been waiting for dinner for the last 2 or 3 hours. But anyway, um what uh, perhaps true to my name, I like to think that I live a pretty well integrated and aligned life. That
Hmm.
is to say, what I do before, during, and after Vibe Camp is pretty similar, right? And how I do my thing and move through the world.
Nice.
Um, yeah. And what I found surprising was that um it felt like Vibe Camp gave me an extra boost of energy, right?
Hmm.
Like we had talked about the reality distortion field that happens when
Hmm.
you assemble 700 of your favorite internet weirdos in one
Right.
place.
Hmm.
And I think I went home with yeah, like an extra boost of energy. And so the things I was doing were in fact more potent, more powerful, more
Hmm.
charged with energy. And those things were like hanging out with friends or like doing authentic relating stuff or also like doing drugs and like introspecting and attending to my healing.
Nice.
Yeah, and they were all more potent than they have been. And it was really nice.
Nice.
Mm,
Oh, yeah.
that is nice. Yeah, I felt the same energy boost afterwards. For me, some of it I think came from like kind of settling of some of my own stuff at Vibe Camp, and then
Hmm.
like you said, the distortion field there was so strong and just catapulted. And I felt like for the most part the integration's gone pretty well. I've been kind of chaotic with work. I'm actually out in the field right now for work, and so that kind of takes a lot of my time up. It's longer days. But I have noticed the same thing where it's like the integration didn't feel any more off kilter or different. It just felt more empowered, like more
Hmm.
capable and more stable too. I've had a lot of moments that felt destabilizing. Your post today about contact improv and the sound. I've had a couple of those moments where sound has really overwhelmed me the last few days, and I caught
Um,
myself more easily stepping out of those moments, just like vibe camp moments,
That's
just like
awesome.
moments at vibe camps that were like, oh, this is too much for me. I need to move on. And that was really great. That was something that like feeling that so quickly after was very nice. So yeah, I'd say it's going well. It's going well.
nice.
How about you,
Good.
QC?
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. It's been rough. So after Vibe Camp, I stayed a little longer in Philly to hang out with people, and then I went to New York to hang out with people, and then I went to Boston to hang out with people. So like I did a bunch of stuff afterwards. Um, all that stuff felt good, but towards the end, especially in Boston, I was like definitely getting tired. I was like, okay, I also did stuff
Mhm.
in Philly before, so it was like I stretched out this whole like 3 week long trip and was kind of like by the end was kind of running on fumes and was like, okay, when I get home, I'm gonna like have to crash pretty hard. And then when I got home, I was just like useless for a week. So I spent the pretty much the entire last week just kind of like uh I'm not sure how to describe it. I felt like I got depleted of several things and I needed to slowly recover all of them. And while I was
Mhm.
recovering them, I wasn't really good for it. Like I was like taking naps in the middle of the day a bunch. Um,
Mhm.
and uh, last night I got some really good sleep, and I had a dream that felt like it should. Do you guys wake up and just kind of feel like a different person? Like somehow like something noticeably shifted. Really? Oh man,
Mm.
that happens to
If
me
you
pretty.
mean if you don't mean like different person, but like different me, just like something has shifted in me,
Yeah,
like
something
slightly.
shifted. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes
Hmm.
I have moments where I wake up and like something feels especially valence wise, it feels much lower in a way that's like you've magnitude gone down in a way that's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
that doesn't mean the same thing, and that
yeah,
shifts
yeah,
everything else in the moment. But
yeah.
yeah, just like that maybe.
Like I'll have things where like I'll spend the night think like kind of bringing up some problem and just being like, wow, this fucking sucks. This is like an awful problem. And then I'll sleep on it and then wake up, be like, oh, that was
Oh
fun.
yeah, yeah,
Like, all right. So
yeah.
I had a bit of that last night, which was good. But I think part of what's been hard for me is like I went from a lot of like kind of nonstop social interaction, like spending all day around other people, to just like when I'm here back at home, I'm like it's nothing. Uh, so that's it's been like a hard like going cold turkey on social interaction.
Yeah, cold turkey on the friend dopamine,
Yeah, which has
man.
been tricky, and I think I've been going through some like withdrawal.
Yeah, heavy.
One of the things that I noticed myself doing, and I say this after describing how I was, integrating.
Mhm.
Here's another thing that I didn't realize I was supposed to talk about. Um, I miss my friends, and like rather than like it doesn't feel like a graspy neediness, but it feels like a I miss all my friends. They're on the TL. I better pay way more attention to Twitter.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Mm,
like
mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
not sort of to like recapture it right through a different
mm-hmm.
medium or like the
Mhm.
original medium, whatever.
Keep that
Um,
thread alive. Keep it
yeah,
open.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it it suffices, right? Like it's not the worst. If we were all digital people and we continued to interact digitally, like that would be good. And now that I have a in-person reference to all these digital people, interacting digitally feels like it um maintains, right? Like it maintains the thread and
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
it helps me keep the in-person notional in-person connection alive,
Mm,
more so than in a way when we're just digital.
yes. Big agree. Big agree. I've definitely missed that. Um, I've had several moments where I almost have a conversation with one of you guys or with some of the other people in our cabin, like interactions between myself, like parts and it. I did this a lot early on. I didn't realize I was doing it with parts, but I would use kind of ideal versions to overlay the part and speak through
Mhm.
them. So like Nick Camarada was one with like his just kind of ridiculous joyousness was like, okay, that's a perfect filter to throw some of my normally like halfway good compliments to myself through. And it's like, amp it up. And so I realize now, like I sometimes do that with my friends when I have like really good conversations and I notice like the way they navigate a moment or the way that they handle the way the incoming interaction is, and that's something that would just like destroy me in the moment or make me rattle me to the core where it's like I don't know that I could even interact, much less handle it so well. And that's been something I've noticed doing a lot more since Vibe Camp. And like you said, it
Mm.
maintains that thread a little bit of um I know you guys better, and I've seen you in like person to person interactions and friend interactions, people that you guys were already very friendly with, that you had a lot, even more, way more engagement than you or I maybe had, and it was so interesting to get those layers built together in a cohesive thread, and like you said, keeping it alive has been Twitter has felt a little more obligatory in a way that like I need to keep these friendships alive because goddamn they're good. Yeah.
That's nice. The like
Mhm.
having versions of your friends in your head that you can like rely on as sources of like
Mhm.
strength or inspiration.
Mhm. Even just like looks. Like I'd have that a lot for people. I have like a facial look that I've had from like people will give me, and if it at the right moment sparks the right emotional moment for me, a lot of times like okay, file that away. Like if I need that for something and it
Mm.
feels like the right moment, and I'll say like you don't want to go crazy with it and just like fill your head with everyone's faces all the time, but it's very much like a feeling of like yeah, thank you. You if you were here, you would feel that way about this, and like I love that. That's awesome.
Man.
And it's really nice to have that
That
sometimes.
that sounds like a really potent self.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, self-reflection is the wrong word, but self-reflection, other reflection
Okay.
tool, right? Like if you can reliably get juice out of casting your internal structure through other people, fuck yeah,
Mm.
dude,
Yeah. Oh
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I put the caveat of like, don't delude yourself with it. Don't pretend those are the real friends. That's something that I think is really important is like we did get to
Mm,
step off the internet and see each other as real life people. And like I think that's a difference that
mm.
sometimes is lost is like there's a different way we all move through the physical world than the digital world. And seeing that and getting to be a part of it was really nice.
Yeah.
Or just
I don't
more. Maybe not different, just more. You get to see more of the person,
I don't know
maybe.
if I can do this thing. Like I feel like I don't know. Have you guys seen these tweets about like ADHD and object permanence?
Hmm.
Like people are like, oh yeah, when you're ADHD, you like kind of forget that things exist if you don't look at them for too long. I I relate to this, I think, in general to some extent, and then especially around people where like if I don't talk to someone in too long, I'll just straight up forget that they exist in any real sense.
Mm,
Like even people that I've been good friends with for a long time, if I like don't talk to them for too long, I'll just like it just won't even feel like there's anything there. Like it won't even like viscerally in my
mm.
body. I'll
Huh.
just be like, I'm alone. I have no friends. No one has ever talked to me.
Oh
Like,
man, yeah. I've had times like that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, where it feels easy to forget the people in your life because they're not right then in my life. And
yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, yeah. And it's not even like a you think about it and then move on. It's like it never even comes up almost.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Amazing.
is
Yeah,
something that I
no,
struggle with.
not at all.
Really?
Like,
Well,
Huh?
yeah, no, like, not at all. I do have something totally different, which I'm sure Keegan would have interesting things to say about, and that is what I call knowledge permanence. And that is, I have a really hard time grokking that other people don't know what I know.
oh yeah.
And like, it
Uh,
usually comes up at work, right? Like, really, like this? How do you not know
How do
this?
you
What's
not know
going on
this?
here? Right.
Yeah.
And like,
that's so funny.
intellectually I'm well aware that we are, distinct beings, blah blah blah
Yep.
blah blah blah. But this knowledge, like, how do you not know this? But
That is a big
which
one for
which
me.
is, actually like a toddler or less than a toddler in developmental stages, which is slightly weird. But here we are.
But
Here we
hey, I'm
are.
a
Yeah.
man, okay? I'm not a toddler.
I think I feel this way more for things that I learned when I was younger. Like, stuff like I
Hmm.
learned the names of the planets when I was pretty young. So like very occasionally I run across people who like can't name all the planets and I'm like, what?
Mm,
What is going on?
yeah.
Didn't you learn this in school? Like
How did you not make a model of this like 4 years in a
didn't
row?
you
Like,
read the
come
same
on.
giant I had this like giant book when I was a kid called Astronomy. It was just like a big black book and it had
I was
these
gonna
like
say black.
huge
Yeah. Big like
huge
table book.
glossy, yeah, exactly, and it had these like
Hmm.
huge glossy photos of like meteors and like galaxies and all and
Yeah. That's some
planets
really
and all
great
good
like
stuff.
Hubble shots in there, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
What
was really nice and I was like, yeah, space, hell yeah, it's good shit.
what kind of universe would we be living if instead of a big coffee table astronomy book, you had a big coffee table astrology book?
Oh man,
Oh
I
man.
mean I also had, the like the Delaire's book of
Oh, that shit was
astrology. I
awesome.
had that, the
Yeah.
big golden book, that was like also super good.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay.
It's a very
Yeah, we
good,
didn't have much woo around when I was a kid. That's a funny thing. Like the only woo was definitely regular organized religion.
regular.
Um, and like
Mm.
there was some old like southern like hillbilly churches, but not in a derogatory way, just like the stuff that crops up in kind of the weird rural areas.
Nice.
And they didn't do anything too crazy, but I remember my great grandmother was like very big into it and like believed that speaking in tongues was not something you messed around with, but like
Mm.
she felt like she could do it, so she would only whip it out like once in a great while. And it was
Ah.
very much like the family viewed it as like, uh-oh, grandma's saying something. Like this is serious. And I remember hearing about those
Yeah.
stories and the way my grandmother said it, from she was actually on my the great grandmother was on my dad's side, but the way she spoke about it was so, demeaning and this is terrible and stupid. And she was clearly profaning Jesus that it was like, well, okay, no more woo. But I would have loved to have had an astrology book on the table, man. That would have been, God, the art alone is just so intriguing to me. That's like a easy draw.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the permanence of friends. Do you feel like you you maintain better knowing that? Like since you know that if it goes too long, do you make a better point to maintain, or is that a struggle too a lot of times?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's
So I was
weird,
gonna
man.
say it's hard for me
I
sometimes.
feel
Yeah.
weird about reaching out to friends. I'm like, oh, I
Mm,
don't even know what it is at this point. Like, I don't know if it's like, oh, they probably don't want to talk to me, or if it's just like, oh, I don't really have anything in particular to say. Like I'm getting a little worried about it. I'm like
I'm
worried
texting
about
someone right now while you're talking that I
Do it.
meant to do
Do
that
it.
today
Do
because
it.
of you saying this. I have
amazing.
the same feeling, man. It's really hard for me to do it. And you saying it is like, I can hear myself being like, yeah, that's fucking hard. And another part being like, but why? Like, who cares? Just text them. And so
Like
I'm gonna do it right now.
something about it just feels so unnatural. Like I think the time in my life that my friendships were like the most like in order or something was high school and college, where I just saw my friends literally all the time. You know,
Mm.
like in college, I just lived in a fraternity, and that was just like those were just my friends, and I saw them like pretty much every day. And like I didn't even have to, I didn't have to make any efforts to see them. They were just there.
Ah,
And that was
yeah.
so nice. Like we were just in
Yes.
the living room together, or we were like eating dinner, you know, we ate dinner together.
Yes.
And that was
The
just like
TL is
so,
nice for that.
yeah, the TL is like sort of the closest thing I have
Like
to
a
this. But
little, yeah.
like it was just so, it was so nice to have it be so simple to like if we wanted to go see a movie together, I'd just be like, hey guys,
Mm.
who wants to go see a movie tonight? Like either I'd say that in person or I'd email it out in case people weren't around, and people, and then you know some people would be like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's go see a movie today. And it was like so simple, and it's just never ever been that simple ever again. Like it's just, you know, after college everything got so complicated. You have to like send people fucking calendar, like doodle post,
Calendar invites and hope that they make
fucking
them. Yeah. I,
like Facebook invites. It's just all this. Like
yeah, it's a pain.
it's
I've
just
talked to a couple people about this that like it was so much easier at almost every stage of being younger, and part of it was just proximity to
yeah,
everyone and like how much you were all just around for stuff. And I was even today talking to Nina, and we were talking about how great it was to just randomly run into each other at Vibe Camp
yeah,
like 4 times, where it was like, I'm headed somewhere, she's headed somewhere, hey babes, that's it. And it's like
yeah.
that's so great to
It's
have
super
those
good.
moments with
It's
people
super nice.
because it's almost like a little spot on the TL for you where you get to see somebody but in real life. And you know, we're both just passing doing our own thing, but yeah, it
Which
is difficult to maintain when they're not like in your orbit.
Yeah,
which
like
is
if it
why we need dense, mixed-use urban city centers that are inherently walkable and full
walkable.
of people, blah blah blah, yimpy yimpy yimpy, etc.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, that
Big
particular
hype.
feeling of being able to just like walk around and just like run into people and then just say hi. And maybe you don't even need to say anything more than hi, but
Because you
maybe
know you're gonna get to see them later.
you're gonna get to
You're
see
gonna
them
you
later.
don't have to like spend your whole time right now. You're gonna see them in dinner in 30 minutes, you know?
But also maybe there's like a brief exchange. You're like, oh, there was like one thing I wanted to say to this person, and I can say that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so, as opposed to like right now, if I want to say things to people, I have to like text them or like DM them, or like if I want to say a lot of things, I have to like
Put
email
effort
them
into it
or
to
like
make space.
put it like schedule a
To make
call. Like it's
space.
just there's just
Yeah.
so much. There are like so many like this really struck me at Vibe Camp last year, and it also struck me this year, but kind of not as strongly. It's just like there are so many conversations that can happen when everyone just is in the same place that like they're like that are just like it wouldn't occur to most of those people to like schedule calls with each other, just because it's just like not the activation energy is just not quite there for that. But
Yeah.
like, once you're in the same place, then it's much lower. It's like, oh, like yeah, let's talk. Let's like talk for a little bit, and maybe it's like
That's
really good.
that's true, but you can also do. I might butcher this. I think it's called the smooch game, the smooch metaphor, and I might be attributing it to
This is
MVPKP or
MVP, yeah,
whatever.
envy.
So you don't have to say a message, right? The message, I'm thinking of you. Follow up, no activation. I mean, minimal activation energy. You have both frozen. Am I okay?
You're
Cool.
okay.
You
Yeah, I think
just continue doing the thing with your thoughts. Oh, you jumped into my thoughts. I'm going to share those thoughts with you. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be. I mean,
Mm.
like, and I do that all the goddamn time.
Mhm.
I have a great friend who is far away, who I love very dearly, and so many of our texts are thinking of you, no response necessary. Right?
Oh,
Like, it's just like, to me that is
Yeah, that's
so
lovely.
sweet and so pure. Right? Like, hey, I
Yeah.
miss you. Like, we're far away and I don't have space, or I don't want to deal with space making, but like, you're a person.
Mm.
Hi.
Mm.
damn.
I
Oh,
like that a lot. I'm gonna make that a like an autofill that I can just because yeah, you're right. It's a lot of it's getting the activation energy out of the way, and part of that activation energy is making the container. I don't want to make space sometimes,
That's
and I
cool.
want them to make space, but you know that's a
Yeah.
whole other thing. but you're right. Like being able just to send it and be like, "Love you, mean it." No response. Thanks.
That's it. Yeah.
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 Like
Mm.
I like it, but also it feels something about it feels like so vulnerable. I'm like, ah, like
Oh.
something about it feels very vulnerable. Like, I don't know what it is. Uh, there's probably a couple things. I think like the specific phrasing "thinking of you" feels really romantic to me. Like for
Mm,
me, it's like that's
I
like
hear
one
that.
thing that I know that I hear people saying to each other as friends. I'm like, thinking of you is like that's like romantic in my mind. It doesn't have to be, I'm sure, but like for me, I'm like, ooh, that's like we're gonna get married. That's like a marriage proposal.
If I'm thinking of you and I say it, it's because we're getting married.
Something about it is just like very, I don't know, it's very intimate. Uh,
Fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we were like solutioning that, we could come up with a different phrase for you. But
Yeah.
I don't think this is the
like
space to
also
come
maybe
up
it's
with it.
fine. I could just be like, fuck it, yeah, I'll
I
admit to
personally use
people.
that same phrasing. I use thinking of you. I usually use it with like my family a fair bit, but I have used it with several friends that I'm just close with. You know, it's like they know that I love them in a way that's like that's it. We love each other. Like
Doesn't matter.
that's
Yeah.
it doesn't nothing else of it matters. That's it. And so thinking of them is enough. But I don't do it enough. Like I'm saying about it, but it's like, damn, man, I don't do it enough. So
I
yeah.
don't, yeah, I don't know if I have like, what's the word? I'm not sure I have any like secure friendships or something.
Oh, fair.
Oh, dude.
Like,
Okay.
oh
Sorry.
man. I mean, yeah, it's just weird. Like I've like done something weird with my friendships the last several years.
Hmm.
Like this is a thing that I've been thinking about lately. I think maybe I'm worried that like I don't know, this is a whole thing. We don't necessarily have to get into it, but like uh I could say a little bit. Like, okay, so there's a kind of romantic pattern where you like get really into meeting new people because there's so much like you get a kind of high on the like new relationship energy.
NRE, yeah.
And then
Hmm.
but then you like but once it's over then you're like and you're like
Hmm.
and you like kind of move on to and I feel like I'm worried that I kind of do that with friendships
Hmm.
Mm,
that
Hmm.
like that I get like really excited about the sort of new phase of friendship where I'm getting to know someone and then like afterwards I'm like, oh, now what? I don't fucking know what to do after this.
I don't either want to do the work or know how to do the work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's I will say that that was definitely me in my 20s a lot.
Mm,
Um, and you saying that phrasing, I didn't think of it that way, but that's a lot of what it was. It was me
mm,
bouncing between friendships because they were new and interesting enough that it wasn't a lot of activation energy to maintain. And
yeah,
then when I stopped maintaining, most of them also stopped maintaining to some degree. And then it was just easy to like, boop.
yeah,
Yeah. I've thought about
yeah.
those friendships a lot and like it feels like there's not something there to reconnect with, but I kind of wondered like why it felt like it happened so much. And I've kind of just attributed it to like, personal issues and bad habits that were definitely a part of it. But I bet some of it was that. Thinking about that, that feels very,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm,
Yeah, I don't.
mm,
This is like a new thing for me. Like this is maybe one of my post-Vibecamp
mm,
integration main things. It's just reflecting on my relationships with friendships. Like there has maybe been a way that I've been like really blinded by focusing obsessively on like romance for a really long time. Just like, oh, I gotta like get a girlfriend or whatever. And like I think something maybe slightly broke about that recently. Like some kind of like pedestalizing or idealizing of women
mm.
broke a little bit right before Vibe Camp, I think, but then I think it kind of like deepened a little over the course of the whole trip. And now I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need to do that as much. But now I'm like, okay, now that that's out of now that I'm sort of like not obsessing over this as much as I was before, like what's the deal with my friendships? And like
Yeah.
maybe I've just been neglecting them. Maybe I've just been neglecting friendships a lot.
I
Mm,
mean,
Sad.
that's definitely a possibility. And it's also the case that, I mean, you only need to plant a few seeds, right?
Mm,
And you plant a dozen seeds, even if two of them turn into friendship flowers, right? Like
mm,
you already have a pretty garden. And the thing about friendships is that frequently they lead to other friendships because you're expanding the social graph, blah blah blah.
mm,
mm,
Yeah, dude, I would heartily encourage you to focus on relationship as the abstract noun and not relationship as the word we use to describe a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, a partnership, right? I have spent, oh God, close to 15 years like intentionally working on relationships of any form with everyone I can meet and feel, you know, attracted to in the valence neutral sense. I don't think attraction is valence neutral, but not in the romantic sense
Right.
necessarily.
Right.
And oh my God, it makes life so much better and so much rewarding. Also because of the college effect that you were mentioning earlier, right? And like it's different because we're adults and, you know, frequently we're not in the same place. But we also have tools to mediate that, right? Like, and Zooms
Yeah.
are poor substitutes for real life interactions, and texting is different from wideband in-person conversation. But
Mhm.
it's also the case that you know, this is the world we live in. These are the constraints we experience, and I'm not going to say no to beautiful, rewarding friendships with people who are currently at the bottom of my screen traveling for work and currently at the top left of my screen, you know, in between Vibe Camp and heading to Europe for a while. Like, to the extent that I have any ability to help you plant some friendship seeds, I'm here to support you for that, because
Yeah.
friendship is fucking magical.
Yeah.
I will say it's gotten easier. I've definitely not worked on it. I probably a couple years of treating, I think doing the same, putting relationship on the pedestal instead of any one version of it, where it's like relational actions to other people are very important. And I always felt that. I always knew that. I grew up with a very strong sense that like the people you meet and the people you're networked with are very important to your well-being, but it
Mhm.
was in a very like normal capitalistic way, in a way that was like, because we're all stuck in this engine together, so let's build a net that helps each other. But
Mhm.
then it was probably the last few years feeling the depth that friendships could be, that were also devoid of like the romantic aspects in any way, which I'd had a couple male friendships that were pretty good, but they didn't feel as deep. And then I had a couple female friendships that all together at once, several of them kind of all reached the level of like holy shit, man. Like working at this and spending some time actually paid like fucking crazy dividends, where it just felt like moments that just well my heart thinking about right now. And
Mhm.
they were just the beginning of those friendships at this point. And then, you know, the knock-on effect of not only finding more people through those people, but then your well-being rising and you finding more people through that. And like that to me is what happened with Twitter. Is like I started it at home, but then I got strong enough to say like I need to go find more people like me in the world. And then I got on Twitter, and then I went and found a bunch of you guys, and found
Yeah.
and hopefully find more, and really have enjoyed the fuck out of like planting those seeds on Twitter and seeing some of them come to fruition now, and being able to meet you all, and some of the talks in our cabin, like those are talks I haven't had with most of my other friends. Like there's a few friends I've had talks like that about, but there's things that we talked about at Vibe Camp that most no one else in my life hears about ever, because we just don't have those level of friendships. And like our time together isn't built in a container space to really build that relationship up usually. And that's me. I got to work at that. I'm going to work at that with some of my friendships. I saw that from Vibe Camp, that like I want some of my normal friendships, normal friendships. I want some of my IRL friendships that started that way to be as strong as the friendships I've already built with you all, and as open and as trusting as some of these friendships already are. Um, it's crazy to feel that, but that is definitely a big takeaway from the event, was seeing like I got to have these kind of friendships with people that are like that do live near me, partly for that college effect,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and because they're in your life already. I mean, that's the
They're in
other
your
thing,
life
is like
already.
they're, it's not like these are castaways, you know, that you've passed by on the life highway. It's like these are people still in the world near you. They're still part of your life. They're still part of your net. Like you can't just choose which parts you're not going to give love to anymore, I think. And I know it's hard to do, but it does sometimes feel like putting in that extra effort is, whew, big A plus from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
I think that, and I'm not asserting that. Let me try this again. I think that there is an interesting trap in bouncing from, you know, new relationship, new friendship energy to new friendship energy, or even just like not like efforting to build up or maintain friendships.
Mhm.
In that, yeah, I can easily imagine myself doing this, where I cast um less close friends as NPCs, right? Which is like problematic in so many different ways, but but ignoring NPC discourse for this, um, I think that there are so many people, or everywhere, with so many interesting things to say about so many interesting topics or interesting ways to be in interesting domains,
Mhm.
that it's a matter of being open and curious and finding other open and curious people to be open and curious with. And to bring it back to Vibe Camp, I think that was a lot of magic of the space, where
Mm,
everyone was totally interesting in their own ways, to the extent that I was capable of being open to their interestingness. And all I had to
Mhm.
do was hang out with them and be curious about what makes them cool, and it would show up. And I think
mm,
all maybe of our meaningful in-person friendships and interactions come from that space of trusting that the other person is cool or awesome, interesting, whatever
oh,
adjective you use.
mm. Yeah, so maybe some of the like over time friendships almost feel like you know the person enough, so they're not as interesting anymore. And so you kind of close down without even meaning to, like you almost close off to their interestingness
Oh,
in a
interesting.
way.
Yeah. Okay.
It's sometimes it feels like as you said that it was like I could see myself doing that, where it's like, okay, I feel like I have seen some of the interestingness. Maybe I don't see enough more, move on. And it feels like that. And that's yeah. Mm, I'm gonna just sit with that. Mm,
Yeah, so the thing that brings up for me, which is related, is that like I feel like I've left behind a lot of friends. Like when when I graduated from college and like went to grad school, I left behind all of my college friends. I like kind of tried to stay in touch with them, but not really. Um, there was still a little bit, like we sometimes we get together in Boston together, and sometimes and I saw everyone at a wedding a couple years later, but like I
mm,
think by like maybe 4 years out from college, I think I'd pretty much lost touch with everybody. And
mm,
like and it's sad. And like I saw one of my friends again a couple years ago, and there was this like uh, this feels a little rude. I'm sort of wondering, like, on the off chance that this friend ever sees this video, I'm like wondering what to say about it that will feel not super rude or something. But like okay, so I guess saying it neutrally, like I felt like much more distance from that friend than I did in college, and that was sad. Like in college, we were really
mm,
close. We like hung out all the time, like all the time. And and I didn't really their life just went in such a different direction from mine. And
mm,
there was just so much. I had all of this. There was like all of this like stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I was like, I don't know if he wants to talk about any of that stuff anymore. Like I don't like I'm just like we just like went off in such different directions, and I just
mm,
didn't know how to bridge the gap, and I still haven't tried to bridge that gap. And so like I don't know where I'm going with this. That's just like the thing that came up. Just like, oh,
yeah.
like left friendships. I've like left people. I've like yeah, just grown really far apart from a lot of people that I used to be really
Mm,
close to, and I'm just sad about it. Sad about it.
mm. I feel that.
Yeah. I I bet we all have versions of that.
Mm,
Mm.
mm,
Like it's sort of like it's sort of the price to pay for being like super into, therapy and meditation and psychedelics and all this other stuff is you just like go to all these places, and then you're like, well, now I want to talk about all this shit that I just experienced. And like, and the good news is that you can find other weirdos who're like, yes, I have also done too many drugs. Let's talk about it.
mm.
But for the other people in your life, or the other people that you used to be close to who like haven't gone in that direction, who just like got a normal job and just like are chill now, it's just like, okay, well, I don't I don't
What
know.
what do we do here?
What do we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. I don't I'm navigating that right now. I feel
Mhm.
like and with most of those friendships nearby
Mhm.
because they're not almost none of the topics that we discuss generally they're even aware of half the time. And if they are, it's very much just like a headline across one newspaper one time type of awareness. And then the stuff that they are aware of is usually there's such a gulf between like experientially what's happened and then starting to explain that, and I haven't been able to navigate that bridge yet. And so I've noticed with a lot of people that like I have to like pull back again and again and like rephrase and respeak it. And it's been good because it's forced me to like reinvestigate myself, to reflect on myself as I'm doing it. But it's been a real challenge. I have no quality advice except keep trying because it seems worth it. It seems like I've gotten better at relating some things, and just feeling other people's experience more generally, um, where it doesn't feel like I'm just like witnessing their curiosity, openness, and interestingness, but instead like actively co-creating in it. And it's felt harder to do with people that don't just natively feel as open. And I haven't really learned that like bridge gap of like building openness in a way that also doesn't feel like I'm just giving away Joshua. So it's definitely been a struggle, but yeah, good luck. I it seems worth it for sure. But it's difficult. mm, mm.
Not
Friendships are
not
tough.
not to harp. Friendships tough? Friendships can be tough, certainly.
I guess I
And
mean in the very general noun sense of friendships, like as a all-encompassing thing of all friendships ever in time. But no, I think honestly they're not as tough as I used to make them out to be.
there you go.
They're just more engaging and open than I used to want to be with other people.
There
And
you go. That's a fucking
been
awesome reframe.
it's been very difficult. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like it pays dividends. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Mm.
Yeah, Frack, you look like you had something cooking.
Yeah. And like at risk of being a parody of myself, um, I mean, well, perhaps let us talk about authentic relating,
All right.
which QC I know you have plenty of experience with,
I
and
have some
Phaent I'm not sure
experience.
your experience, but
Almost zero.
cool,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is useful about authentic relating, and the games I play, is that we all have emotions, and that is an inbuilt bridge for any relationship where I don't know where you are or how you are, and you don't know where I am or how I am. Like a
Mm.
magical key, which may or may not turn the lock of an arbitrary friendship, is, and how do you feel about that? Like what's like you just told me a thing about watching football with your kid while I was off doing high dose LSD, like whatever the fuck. And I don't know how to talk about watching football with your kid,
Yeah,
but
I
you
don't
do.
anymore.
What was your experience of hanging out with your kid?
Mm.
How did that impact your life? What can you communicate about it to me that I also understand? And like we all have feelings, and it's a medium, and
Mm.
it runs into the same pitfalls of other friendships, and that is, well, like if we're both not capable of talking about high dose LSD, and we're also not capable of talking about emotions, then then yeah, that bridge isn't
Yeah.
going to work. But like everyone has mad glad sad. Everyone. So many people have mad glad sad, and many people have way more than that in terms of complexity and specificity. And I'd like to say that I'm better in every moment of my waking life at bridging the gap with strangers and random people, and I'm not. I'm mostly better at bridging that gap with strangers and random people in containers of authentic relating.
Mm.
But like
Mm.
I think I hold it as a like an ideal, right? Like,
Hmm.
oh, but I could actually have a really cool, deep connective experience with fundamentally anyone, because these emotions that we all have are universal, right? To
Mm.
the extent that we can all talk about them, and
Hmm.
I think that's kind of a hack to connection, and that could just be a way I'm wired, but I mean, it's worked for me so far.
Yeah.
No, it feels right. It definitely feels like those are the easiest ways. Not easiest, that's the wrong phrasing, but like the most conducive ways for me to relate in those moments is kind of like a simplified mad glad sad almost, because it is so much easier to then start talking to somewhere from there. Because it is most of the time like I just don't watch most sports anymore. And like when I do, it's I'm watching like a thing happening that's interesting, but I'm not keeping up with this. And then a friend will ask about it, and I'm like, I immediately want to go to the sorry man, I don't watch that anymore. But instead, it's like, I really do try to find a way to relate, and it usually ends up with like that. So that's man, I hadn't thought about just like ask. It's so dumb. I hadn't thought about just asking it more. How do you feel about that? Yeah, because it's such an easy hack into like hearing more authenticity from the person, ostensibly. Maybe you don't, but it feels like you would.
Yeah, I mean that
Hmm.
one in particular is interesting. I feel like I used to be a lot more gung ho about this sort of thing, but I think I since have run into people who are like just cagier about their emotions.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the thing that I my experience is sort of like if I want to have like a good conversation with like an arbitrary person, I think like probably I think my favorite conversations like that and also somehow kind of the most reliable are like when we get into the groove of just like sharing stories. Like there was a night in New York after Vibe Camp, I was hanging out with like um Monk and Natural Hazard and Antibody, and we just started talking about like we just started sharing stories about our first kisses. It was like this very cute little. I don't
Mm.
remember how we got into the topic. We just like started sharing stories, and it was just like this very sweet little like reminiscing
Yeah.
together and being and like kind of being good audiences for each other's stories. Being like, whoa, that's crazy! Like that's so. And there was a kind of similar conversation that I think you guys were both in on the first night of Vibe Camp, like outside of our door, where we started sharing like sort of like what are our childhood memories of like awe and
Hmm.
wonder.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That conversation felt amazing. Like in that conversation, I felt like
It did.
I was like feeling everyone's childhood awe and wonder a little, and that just like was so cool. And the thing
Mm.
I really like about getting into that kind of groove, like sharing stories, is like everyone has stories. Like literally everybody has like
Mm.
they've had some shit happen to them, and they like have some nice stories they can tell about it. It feels
Hmm.
very like if I was going to bet on like a type of conversation I could have with like literally any person on the planet, like that I
Stories.
think sharing story like anyone
Yeah.
can share stories. Like that feels like so universal. And I don't always get to have those kinds of conversations, but when I do, I'm like, yeah, we're just being humans together, just telling stories.
It does have like a very primal feel to it of
Yeah,
not just the authenticity of the relating, but there is like a this is what like you did in the wilderness when you finally saw another human was like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you said like, okay, let's share the stories of your shit. Okay, now hear my shit. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that does feel I like that.
I do appreciate the like primalness of it. And you could say that an emotion is like a very small story, like, oh, this thing happened and I was sad
Hmm.
about it. So like that's like a sort of mini chunk of narrative. Um,
Mm,
and I think it all kind of flows together. But again,
mm,
I think there are conversations where kind of at least my feeling is sometimes like trying being like, and how does that make you feel would kind of interrupt the flow a little bit. Like it would
for
sort of
sure.
That's a
Yeah.
normal
take the other
thing.
person
Yeah.
like out of a thing slightly. Like, oh, how did
Yeah.
I feel about that? Like, oh, is this fucking therapy? Or like, are you, you know what I mean? Like, is that what we're doing right now?
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. You don't want to like push that too hard.
If I
Uh,
was talking, if I was like, I don't know, backpacking in Europe and I started talking to some random guy I met there, is like, does that guy want to talk about his feelings? I don't know, maybe. Like, he
I
probably
mean,
has.
fair.
sure, but also a lot of the conversations I've had while backpacking were pretty fucking boring and dumb.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, like,
Yeah.
oh, did you see that possum? No, I didn't. Like, okay.
Okay. Well, it was
I mean,
there, I promise.
I'm being there's a D word. That's not like the nicest way I could tell that story of like my accumulated hiking stories.
Sure.
But and we all have different things that spark us too, right? Like
Mhm.
it could be that I'm not well equipped to like I know for a fact I'm not very well equipped to shooting shit with strangers. Like
Mm,
I need
Mm,
some hooks. And for me, right, like AR has gotten me there.
mhm.
And I still have a good ways to go in terms of like personal growth as far as being able to shoot shit with strangers.
Yeah.
But and I think you have both of you actually have a much greater fluency in that skill than I do.
100%.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm still not very good at it. Like most strangers still scare me. But once I have like one, I need like one hook. I need just like
yeah.
one thing to
It,
talk about.
it's a weird way to think about it, but I grew up with a very social minister mother, and then a very social sister, and then a very social older cousin female that lived with us. And my dad wasn't around through divorce, and so then it became a like Joshua the introvert with three very extroverted socialized people. And so it often
Mhm.
feels like I can turn that algorithm on when like if I have enough of a hook that like lets me not feel like this is just a fake moment to do something for no reason.
Mhm.
It does feel like I can more easily go, oh, okay, I can socialize. I can actually do this. And it is still scary as shit. I'll tell you that
Yeah, yeah.
that circle of talking about the things that awe us was God, I was buzzing the whole time with
Oh.
just like anxiousness and nervousness because I wasn't sure how that would go over, like as a question. And
Mhm.
especially once we started to hear how some people didn't feel like they had many of them or
Yeah.
any of them. And it was very much like, oh shit, like did I open a can of worms that like I wasn't prepared to open and especially no one else wanted to? And kind of the same way, like,
Mhm.
how do you feel?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we maybe weren't ready for this shit. But it
I
it ended up being really beautiful to
yeah, I
hear.
liked that. I felt like we were like when some of the people were like, yeah, I don't know if I have any of those. I felt like everyone else was really with them, like, oh shit. Yeah, just
Yeah.
feeling the
Yeah, it
impact
was
of it.
very much like it felt like a group hug moment of like,
Yeah.
oh, like okay, let's talk about that. Like
Yeah.
in a less direct way, but
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, let's hear more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was really great to share those stories, but it did even in those moments feel, scary as shit. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
don't think the facade doesn't cover up all the nasty vibration underneath as you're like, ah.
Mhm.
Mm. So how long have you been home now? A week, you said?
Me?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
a week.
So you've had a week and it took you about a week to reset. Yeah, I guess I would say, we were talking about the integration, and I was thinking when you said that, it did feel like integration energy was up, but normal, like non-integration slash needs, everything else was down. So like
Mhm.
not like normal friend interactions that I would have normally during the week right after Vibe Camp when I was back at home didn't really happen. I like made a point to not have many of those.
Mhm.
And then like even some of the interactions with my sister and a few other family members were just like it's not that I like cut them off. I just kind of didn't give them as much space from me because it was I did need to kind of not wall off, but I did feel that like vulnerability shell of like I'm really raw and open, and I don't know how that's going to just sit as I fall back into my normal habits and routines. And
Right.
I think what maybe Fractal already knows because he's done it a lot more, but like that feeling of within the first couple of days, it was like, okay, I just have to be more of this more often. I have to
Mhm.
be more of this open, vulnerable version in a safe way. Definitely safe for me, but um, because it was like I was getting all the good of Vibe Camp and I was suddenly getting the good of being home with that good stuff too. And it was like,
Mhm.
wow, I'm getting both, double
Yeah.
dipping. So yeah, hearing you say that, it did feel like though it was like a full week there that I kind of powered down everything else except integration and like basic needs, and then went, oh okay, yep, reopen. Let's see what's out there. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
I think that might be an analog of the going to sleep and waking up with different energy vibe that you QC and to a lesser extent you Phaent were talking about earlier, right? Like
Hmm.
you went to Vibe Camp, you had the big experience, you came back, you some part of you took a nap so
Mm.
that when you woke up you
Mm.
could be whatever healthy whole this particular way back here in reality and not uh, the maybe what I'm trying to say is the merging of your or whatever the merging of your vibe camp state and your default world state.
Mm.
Yeah, trying to
Yeah,
integrate them. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It did it that feels really, really accurate for me hearing you say that. It does. It does feel like that's exactly it was like the native systems knew how to integrate it, and one of
Yeah.
those ways
Yeah.
was don't even make the space for these things. Like you don't need to. It's okay. And then as soon as I started to feel the energy like expand beyond that, it was very easy to open up the space. So yeah, that resonates a lot for me. Hmm. Hmm. I do feel super invigorated. I I've this is one of my posts that came I think earlier this year, but seeing all these people that I think I said younger than me, but just seeing all these people in a nebulous way that are just ridiculously passionate about things that are also just very interesting, important, useful, like all these different avenues, there are multiple pieces of them. And seeing just how much they're getting done invigorates the shit out of me as a person. But then getting to do that at Vibe Camp invigorated me even more. And then I think that like integration week after felt more um like integrating both all of those little parts into like, damn man, you got all this energy around you, like do something with it. Like do start doing the things that you keep thinking about doing and instead of just hoping that they get done. Kind of with the friendships. Send the text instead of just hoping that they send a text to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah. Somebody, I think Trisha Pickering had a good tweet recently that was something like, you can like go on, you can do all of the psychedelic trips, and you can go to all of the retreats you want, and none of that stuff makes any difference if you don't come back to your life and then make different choices than you were making before. And I was like, damn it.
Don't you hold me accountable.
Just came out here to have a good time and I feel like that. But actually, though,
I
I
just
mean,
feel
like,
like
yeah,
to
that's
have some
like
brews with my friends, man.
I guess sort of one way you could put that is that like the point of all that other stuff is to like open up choice where there wasn't choice before. Like maybe before you're like something is like too kind of rigid and too tight and like too like traumatized maybe in the most extreme case, but just one way or another like something is closed off and unavailable to be changed and sort of and there's some way in which you can't make a choice. Like maybe you like have uh some fears around getting a new job or some fears around like ending a relationship that you on some level know that you should end, and then hopefully what happens if you go to like go have some kind of transformative experience somewhere else is you come back and like something is freed up and like you
Mm-hmm.
can make a choice that you couldn't make before,
Mm-hmm.
but then you still have to actually make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yep.
sitting here being like, okay, so for me, like what is the choice? And like
Mm.
there's a couple possibilities, and like I've been thinking about moving, for example, but maybe like the more important thing is this thing we've been talking about friendship. Like maybe the choice is just to start reaching out to my friends and to start like actually
Mm.
prioritizing and giving a shit about my friendships, because I don't think I've been doing that.
I like that. I like hearing that. Um, it often feels Vibe Camp. One of the aspects of Vibe Camp that feels so powerful to me is the foundational aspect. And for me, foundations are not just like where you build from, but it's where you build your rocket ship from. So it's like you need a launch pad eventually. Like you're not just building towers; you're trying to go places usually. And so the foundational builds feel so important that and for me for a long time it felt like those were skills. I had to acquire skills or I had to acquire knowledge, or for a long time like materialistic things were like the only way to beat the game. And more in the last few years, prioritizing those relationships of all kinds feels like that's the actual foundation. And like even though it doesn't feel like concrete rigid like I would like a rocket pad to feel, it does feel like the actual springboard for those bigger choices. Like, where do you move? It's like, well, where do you move? Where are your friends at? It's like where's the net that's going to hold you, or the net that you want to be a part of. Um, is where my first thought goes to is like, build those friendships, and then maybe the place will just pop up and tell you. It'll be like clear. This is where I need to be for a little while. And conversely, you might find that like building those friendships means you don't need to do anything in that realm. And so sometimes it feels like to me that's I gave it not enough space for way too long. And it feels like it's way more important at like a foundational level, if not a full on springboard level for me. And so, yeah, I like hearing that. I like that. That seems worthy to go for.
I'm thinking about Visa's like the meaning of life is friends stuff. Shit, maybe he was right. Fuck it. Ass.
Damn it.
I mean, you kind of just asked two of your friends to show up on a Zoom so you could just shoot the shit for a couple hours.
That's
I mean,
right, yeah.
nah, fuck
True.
friendship. That's not important. What are you talking about?
Friends.
Friendship is awesome.
Friendship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe friendship is magic. Maybe My Little Pony.
They had it right all along.
The
You wouldn't
greatest
expect
words of
us.
wisdom.
You wouldn't expect us to take a turn to the brony, but here we are.
I haven't
Oh.
I don't know if I'm gonna end up writing this, but I was like thinking about writing a Vibecamp retrospective like post, and it was gonna be called My Little Vibecamp Friendship is Magic. I might still write it. We'll see.
I
Awesome.
mean, it still sounds good.
Mm.
Friendship is magic. It is, man, it's magic in so many ways, like beyond just being kind of like alchemical to me, where it feels like it's transmutive to so many other things. It's like that's part of the cool magic to it, is like you don't even know sometimes what it's going to give you out of those friendships. It's like
Mm.
even both of you in this conversation, like little tidbits of wisdom that I've gotten from you all, or just tidbits of life experience that feels like, who the fuck else would I have ever heard that from? I would have never got that if I didn't go down these roads with you guys. And so it's very much like I guess feeling those deeply has widened my willingness to make space for these things and to say like, yeah, it does like take effort and I do have to like get better at it. I'm gonna have to work at like not being scared of like time gulfs between and then not reaching out, because I am bad about that. If it doesn't happen, like I'll be the guy that like lets it go for way too long.
Yeah. There's like
And
a
that has
bunch
to
of
change.
yeah. Part of the thing here is like a lot of the people, there's people I like want to be closer friends with. And like we all kind of have the same set of problems. Like we all have like ADHD and we're all like you like go through depressive phases. And so like we're all people that will kind of like sometimes ignore messages for weeks. And that's just part of the thing that I have to deal with. Like if I reach out to any given person being like, hey, I think you're cool and you want to like get on a call or something or just whatever, like I have to deal with like possibly not hearing back for quite a long time and just being okay with that. That's like
Yeah.
one thing.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's like we're all okay. I finally managed to find a bunch of people who are like me, and it turns out they are also like me in this way. Where
Oh, those things that I didn't think that they would be like me, they're
yeah,
also
it's like
like me.
oh,
Damn
that's
it.
also part of it. And then I think there's like another component for me which has to do with kind of like it's like scary for me to like admit that I like or care about people if I don't know if they feel the same way. It's like, oh, what if I want to be friends, but they think I'm lame? That would be so sad.
Yeah, it does feel like that would be the worst thing ever.
And like I don't know, like it feels somehow different. Like I also of course have like a romantic version of this. Like, oh, what if I have a crush on someone? They go, but like the friendship version feels different and also in some ways worse. And I don't know what's up with that. But like there's something about it that like it's just scary. I'm just like, oh, I don't know. What if this guy thinks I'm lame? I guess
Do you think you're cool?
I don't know, man. Sometimes.
Like in any ways? Like it doesn't have to be like whole QC is the coolest person ever, but like is there some aspect of you that you think of as pretty cool?
I think I'm cool when like I'm above a certain baseline happiness. Like
Okay.
I know that I'm very cool when I'm happy. Like that part at that point I'm pretty confident. I'm like good. When I'm like having a good time in an environment like Vibe Camp and where I feel like, respected and liked. I'm like that like charges me up. That like makes me like blossom as a person. And then I'm like, okay, that guy is cool. I definitely know that. But like the rest of the time, I'm often not like that. The rest of the time, I'm often this like fucking piece of shit, like just sitting around, like overcome by anxiety. And I'm just like, I don't know if that guy's cool. I don't know if people want to be friends with that guy. That part, that's a little hard.
There's so much I want to say, and they're all stepping on each other's toes to get out of my mouth.
That's okay. You can take your time.
That's really sad, dude. And I'm sorry you have that experience. And I think you should see yourself as cool as I see you, and I think Faint sees you, and
Hmm.
probably 100 other people that you don't even know pay attention to you,
Hmm.
because you do occupy some high status role on the TL at least, and all these parasocial people are looking up to you, and like sure they don't know you, but and like me telling you, yeah, dude, you're cool, isn't like that's not gonna do it, I don't think, but if it will, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah,
easy
that's all
win.
it takes.
Yeah, that's an easy
Yeah.
win. But
Woo!
yeah, dude, and when I am in a depressive phase, I am not equipped to hear this message, right? But like the people
Hmm.
who care about you and the people who matter are the ones who want to be around you because they like you for who you are. And who you are is also someone who has depressive phases where you have, anxiety, low energy, like whatever, where you're doing the thing.
Hmm.
And like yeah, like these words don't mean anything until you believe them. But I believe them about you.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I would add the. I just posted this on the TL actually right before this because it happened on the way into the hotel right before this. But after I started doing psychedelics, I hadn't really noticed it before. But as a kid, I used to do it as well. This is one of those like unlocking the things of your childhood. But
mm,
uh, I noticed my inner dialogue would be like basically high five myself, you're awesome at moments for just doing like mundane shit sometimes. Or more often now, things that feel very Joshua unique. They feel very much only my experience would have this like moment in my mind. And it feels very much like, oh, that's fun. And then the
mm,
part of me goes like, that's cool, dude. That's awesome. And
mm,
there's something to that that like it's not just like a feeling of like a meta of like giving and receiving loving kindness. It's really like a I feel some part of me is very cool. I don't feel the whole thing is super cool all the time. I definitely, wallow in my own depression many times and don't feel this way. But when I'm at my best, I try to also like loop that back to like I am cool. Like, come on now. Like, recognize it in yourself, Joshua. Like, you are cool. You are having a good moment. You did well at this in a way that isn't like not meant to be cheesy or trying to like overbearing, but like just when you recognize it, it feels easy to me to just have a moment of like, hey, that's pretty cool. Like, good
mm,
job.
mm.
And that really made a change for me. And I would recommend trying it if you haven't. It sometimes feels cheesy, but sometimes when I sit and bask in it, there's a very real like me to me bro love fest in there. That's just like we're best friends, man. Like little kids holding hands and like running around the playground kind of feel. That
Oh,
like it just feels very it feels very cool. That's an easy way to say it. But yeah, I I have felt that a lot, man. Depressive periods immediately push the well, I have all these reasons why they could think that you're cool, but it won't matter anyway. So what do you care for? And then that just spirals you even lower. But
mm,
I find that if I can remind myself of those little things that inside my head make me go, that's awesome. It's like, yeah, that's a way that really seems to inoculate against that feeling of dismissiveness of like, I'm not cool. I'm not cool enough for anyone that I think is cool to like me. And that's so easy to fall into, it feels like.
mm,
So easy.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
can
really
tell.
cool, man.
I can tell
I,
that there's
I
a
wish we
lot,
could say
dude.
that
Like,
more. Yeah.
it's just, I think I'm just really being hit by this sense of like, I've spent like really quite a lot of time deliberately like processing my romantic relationships, like going over them and just like feeling all of the feelings. And that was like good and necessary. And I'm glad I did that. And now I'm realizing I just like haven't done that for friendships. Like, I haven't gone back and like revisited my revisited friendships that I have unresolved feelings about. Like,
Mm,
there's probably some of that. I can think of one right now at least, and there's probably more. And I like it feels, I don't know. I'm just saying things off the cuff right now. Like, you're just getting like pretty unfiltered. Like, I've never really thought about this in very much detail before. Um, but like romance, I feel like there are like scripts for like having feelings about exes. Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, I have feelings about exes. That's like a normal thing to have. people write songs about it where they're like, I'm so fucked up, I miss you so much. Like, yeah, okay, this is like an extremely culturally approved set of emotions to have.
Mm-hmm.
Which is there's something kind of reassuring about that. Like when I get to really like go into the feels about exes and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is like the stuff that people write songs about. This is like
Mm-hmm.
it's like I
People
don't know.
know this pain.
Yeah, yeah, it's like this is like known. This is like, but somehow
Mm-hmm.
like the nobody not that I people don't write songs about their friendships or something, or at least not really, not songs that I'm familiar with. Like there's just isn't the same level of like sense that in sort of
Like cherishing the friendships enough to then write songs about them when they fall apart.
yeah,
Like
like
feeling.
there's not anywhere near that level of like attention in sort of like at least American culture. I don't know how it is in other places. And like it
Yeah.
makes it feel different somehow. Like I don't, what is it? I don't know how to say this. There's some kind of like I don't have scripts for like how to,
How to process the death of a friendship.
yeah, or how, even as simple as just like how to just acknowledge how much they mean to me.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, that hit something. Oh my god.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Are we
oh,
gonna biomotive right now?
oh, I mean, maybe. Oh, that hit a very specific set of friendships.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
That I'm just like,
Mm.
oh no, I gotta take some time for this afterwards. Oh my god.
oh, dude.
Oh,
Mm.
oh
What
no.
a what
Oh
a lovely,
no.
messy human
Oh
experience.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm having feelings. Oh, the worst.
Oh, they got me again, those
They
damn
got me.
feelings.
They got me again.
I think I feel that a lot. Like as you were saying that, I don't really think of many songs that were ever in like the zeitgeist that felt like they were about friendships, much less like the death of friendships or like ex-friends in a way. Like I think I can think of a few that weren't romantic songs in that way. So maybe they were about friendships,
Mm.
but it really does seem like there was a dearth of that. And so you're right. I don't even I guess I just say it in the same way I say romantic friendships, but I guess I just glommed onto that because it worked. Like it wasn't because it felt like the better way to say it or anything. Because you're right, we don't really like most people don't talk about it. I don't know many of my friends that talk about past friendships in any detail, really. You know, it's like usually we don't talk to them anymore. And
Yeah.
that's about it a lot of times.
Yeah, like we just let friendships die, and
Mm,
it's just how it goes.
mm. I mean, you could title this podcast "Magic Friendship is
Yeah,
Magic"
I'm
because
thinking
that seems where we keep getting back to
that's
is
like
like
that's
not
what I'm
letting
thinking.
friendships die, not letting them wither in the garden, basically. You know, we're planting seeds, but you got to keep tending. You can't just walk away and hope the plant grows on its own and then walks away to you as well. It feels like it's like you got to go back and tend the garden that you planted.
Yeah, I have so many different. I'm like looping. I'm like going through my head now of like, what friendships do I have unresolved feelings about? It's just so many actually.
Oh,
Like,
I'm definitely going to sit with that for a while.
oh
It's
my
not
god.
something that I thought of deeply unless it came up with a specific friend. You
Mm.
know, in those moments, I do tend to reflect on like really like sit in the grieving of that friendship loss. I have one from high school that we basically just drifted apart, and it was because from the beginning we were very different people. We weren't, you know, he was like a really short, fast kid that liked crazy fast racers. I couldn't fit in any of those cars. Like I couldn't
Mm.
fit in a Honda Civic for like ever since I was like sixth grade, basically. So it's like that shit is horrendous for me. But like I rode around in that shit because he was my best
Oh,
friend in high school, and
no.
then just like everything else was so different. And then after college, we definitely drifted, and I never grieved that for like 10 years. It was a long time before I finally sat with that one. And I remember crying about it, and really like for me a lot of it was crying the fact that like it felt so easy that it went away. Like it felt easy that I let it happen and easy that he let it happen. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until later that I really felt that the depth of how different we were, and like it felt like our life trajectories were always going to go different ways. Like we would have had to put in a lot of work and have a lot of foundational you know experiences together to probably hold that together, and we just didn't have that same level, and neither of us put in the effort, and so it makes sense now. And I don't I don't mourn it in the same way, but it definitely required some deep grieving. And like now that you're saying that, it's like I probably do need to do a pass through and just like really sit with a lot of these, a lot more of my
Yeah.
friendships that aren't there, because
I,
I
yeah.
bet I'm more pained about them than I think about,
Yeah,
honestly.
I've never grieved a friendship. That's just really striking me right
Mm.
now. I have never grieved a friendship. And there's definitely stuff. There's plenty of stuff there. Oh man.
Mm. Yeah, but again, that goes back to like I grieve it from almost like a romantic perspective. And
Mhm.
then for myself, that was part of like the having to change my orientation to relationship to be not romantic. It has to be just all relationship. All relationship matters.
Mhm.
Romantic happens to be a way that I really enjoy and, does a lot of other things for me, but like
Mhm.
I have to be better about all relations or the romantic ones are going to fall apart too. And that's what I had felt at least. But the friends ones, a lot of those fell apart too. A lot more friends fell away than romantic partners from those years. So,
Mhm.
hmm, definitely a lot to sit with there.
Um,
Did we think we were all
Yes.
getting homework today?
I mean, there's definitely some work to do. There's always work
Good
to do, and the
stuff,
reward for a
man.
job well done is more work,
Oh my
right?
Hmm.
God.
If you do a good job of grieving your friendships, you will have more work in the shape of new friendships that you will then have to effort towards. I'm so sorry, QC. That is reality.
Yeah, but this also feels really because like this feels important because like in the same way I felt like really blocked on romantic relationships because there was so much unprocessed stuff and I was just like, okay, at some point I was
Mm,
like, I just got to go through this or else I'm just gonna like keep getting hurt and keep getting scared and then like not be willing to do it
hmm
anymore. And I think I
hmm
was right about that. I think I was like very much right about that, even though it really took quite a while. But now I'm like, do I have to do the same thing for friendship? Because I also feel like I get hurt and I get scared about friendships. And like there are probably like I'm finding myself in this position of just like I kind of feel like I have no close friends, and have been like keeping myself away from forming close friendships on purpose. And I'm like,
mm,
probably reasons. That doesn't happen randomly. Like that's a
mm.
thing I did on purpose. It's probably because I'm scared. There's a God, fucking. There's a friend that I feel like very betrayed by, and I've like never. Oh, that hit something. Just saying that, and
Mm.
I've never really processed it. Like I've touched it a couple of times and been like, no, I don't fucking want to think about this guy ever again. But
You
it
kind
might
of
be,
have to.
it might be time. It might be time. It's coming up. It's coming up, man.
Yeah,
It's coming up. Ah,
yeah. I mean, that definitely resonates for me. A lot of my ability to feel more open and safe in even coming to Vibe Camp. I'll be honest, I was scared shitless meeting you all. Some of you guys did feel like a little bit like internet celebrity, but in a way that like I just didn't know how it was going to be to meet you. Not that it was like the celebrity part would be like you would be so higher than me pedestal, but like I just didn't know like how do you
yeah, yeah,
interact
yeah,
with people and like could we be authentic together?
yeah.
And like
Could a low B and a high B truly be?
well, yeah, like could we? Could we? It was like, yes, oh fuck yeah, we can. After some of the conversations we had, it was like it's so wild to then get on the TL with some of you and like to have these like this version of you in real life and then to also see the fullness of the version through the TL. But yeah, it would scare the shit out of me because it was just very much like, what am I opening myself up to and will I be received? Will I be seen and will I be held? And I'll tell you, I came into it with a lot of like personal issues going on, and that definitely sparked it. And then the second night or first night, having Fractal come out and say like he's gonna hug me, and when I came to pick up a couple of our mates, that was like a moment of like this person cares about me as a person, regardless of everything else that we've discussed between him and I. Everything else, this person thinks of me as a person that needs a hug, and he would like to hug me as well. And it was like okay. And then the conversations in the Airbnb were like, we're having like real fucking talks before we've even gotten to Vibe Camp. And I was like, yes. And like people opening up about things that like I had no idea that they would open about that. Like I genuinely came into this expecting some of that, but not sure how much people would. And so there was a lot of fear there coming in. And then really quickly it was like, okay, but that work for, however many years now has just built space for me to be like, it'll be okay. Like sometimes you don't really feel it, but you're like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. And I do feel that. And then of course the moments happen that they go, yeah, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. So, hmm. I feel that too. It's scary. It's scary to open yourself up like that sometimes, and with especially new people, um, and then knowing what's happened in the past with people that you've opened up to. Yeah.
Frac, you look like you have something cooking again.
Yeah, I'm having a big experience. There's a woman in my life right now, and things are complicated at best. And right before I left for, I was traveling before Vibecamp, and then I went from traveling directly to Vibecamp. So right before I left for my pre-Vibecamp travel, we had a thing come up that was very challenging for me to deal with. And so when Phaent just looked into his camera and said, "You're going to be all right," um,
Hmm.
I had something happen. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm going to see her tomorrow. I think. I think we made plans for tomorrow. We definitely have plans for Thursday, and then today we made plans also for tomorrow. So like,
Hmm.
I don't need to get into all of it, but uh, living the last 3 or 4 weeks of like hardcore anxious attachment bullshit. Right, to
Yeah.
make plans with her today and to hear Faint tell me it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be
Like,
okay, man.
right, and
Yep.
I guess I'm taking this in a direction, and that's fine. Um, one of the things I talked to one of my friends about recently was that I could ask myself, well, what would a securely attached person do in a situation like this?
Mm.
And like a securely attached person would be like, yeah, of course I'm going to hang out with her. It'll be cool. And if I don't hang out with her, that will be really unfortunate, and that will be sad. But also like life will go on, and I'll keep talking to my Twitter friends, and I'll meet other cool people, and that
Hmm.
will be a bummer. But like securely attached Frac is a powerful ass person, and I'm trying to step into that.
Ah, yes, he is. Yes, he is. Mm. I feeling Vibe Camp for me felt a lot like I said, I felt the need to be held. And for me, Vibe Camp felt a lot of like a lot of people needed to be held in
Mm.
many different ways, in many different ways. But it felt like so many people there had not been held in some almost always mission critical way to their life and may never get that experience any other place. Like that's the thing is like some of these people genuinely I don't know if they'll have the ability to have those experiences if they hadn't come to something like this. And there may be more avenues in the future, but it just felt like that from a lot of people that like there was some level of needing to be held and it really pushed on me how often I just need to be told inside like it's gonna be okay. Like from a securely attached version of Joshua, it's gonna be okay. And I was talking to QC and another friend on the hill, and we were talking about a book that I read by Glennon Doyle, Untamed, but the walking to the forest with your kid and holding their hand and being willing to ask the tough questions. And when I read that, I remember it was a couple years ago, and I read that, and I broke down crying because I realized like I never felt that my parents ever were willing to do that with me. They were willing to ask tough questions, but they weren't willing to stand in them with me. They would ask the tough questions of me or of the other thing and then separate and let me handle it. But it was never like, I'm going to sit down and we're going to handle this. And I realized how much I needed that even now as a grown man who like constantly needs to just know from some aspect of the world that like it really is going to be okay. Like there's so many things that could go wrong and yet even then it will be okay. Like there's just so little that will really not make it okay that like you're worrying for nothing. And hearing that inside has been so transformative, but hearing it outside at the right moments is it's kind of crazy how pivotal that can be when you have a moment that's like, oh, hmm, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm, yeah. Hmm.
I don't know if
So
I like Go ahead.
Go.
I don't know if I could like believe that coming from other people. Like I can't think of the last time someone said something like that to me and I believed them. Like I think
Mm,
generally I have a hard time believing a lot of things along these lines that people say. Like I think there's like a lot of stuff here. But for example, like I think I've stopped believing when people say I love you. I'm just like, no, you don't. Get out of here. Like how could you like
mm.
I
I'm
went through
personally offended by hearing that.
I'm gonna say it twice as much
I'm
now.
just trying to authentically relate to you. Just relating to you.
Take my authentic relation.
But like, okay, so for example, I used to be like I used to say I love you really early in when dating people. Like there was a woman I dated in 2016 where I think I said I love you after like a month or something or 6 weeks or something. And in retrospect, I regret doing that. I think it probably made things worse. Uh like I think she felt some pressure to reciprocate and like she said I love you like maybe 2 weeks afterwards, but in retrospect I don't know if she meant it or I don't know what she meant by it is maybe a more accurate like I like it, this is a long story so I'm not going to get into it, but like it ended pretty messily and she broke up with me and stuff, and in retrospect I was like, what did she mean when she said I love you? Like I didn't get to know her well enough to understand what she meant by that word.
Mhm.
And like I took it to mean something that it did not mean.
Mm,
That was like a significant
mm,
moment for me. I was like, oh man, yeah, like I don't understand other people. Like, what do people mean when they say love? Like, I just don't know anymore. And I think ever since then, I've like, I have like my guard up
yeah.
around that word specifically. Just like, what do you?
Yeah. Because I can't trust your meaning to mean anything close to my meaning.
Yeah,
I just disregard from the get-go. Yeah.
yeah. Like, I think
I
for
get
me
that.
at the time, and probably to some extent now, like like that like for me love had like an aspect of commitment to it, and and I
Oh.
thought like like I on some level felt like she was declaring a kind of commitment to me, and then later it was like clear that that was not true. uh,
Sadly, yes.
so then I was
Yeah.
like language that just
Kill the language. Don't use it.
yeah. So I think I just like maybe from that point on, maybe a little bit later developed like a guard around people using that word, uh, and around me using that word. Like
Hmm.
I don't throw around the word love very readily either. Like it's very occasionally it just feels like the correct thing to say. Um, but in like a platonic more of like, oh, I love you guys kind of way. Like some occasionally that will just feel right to say, but
Mm,
most of the time I'm like very hesitant to say it uh, to anybody really.
mm.
It's such a like, what does it mean? I don't know, man. Mysterious.
Words. I mean, like we could have a whole 2 hour conversation about words and not get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Love, like saying love, I will tell you, some of the friendship attachment has helped with that. Um, feeling, hearing you say that like you didn't quite feel, oh, did we lose QC? Oh no, you're
No,
there.
he's still
Sorry.
here.
If you don't feel that the other person means the same thing, then like I've definitely, that resonates a lot. I feel that through a lot of my mid relationships, probably the ones that were mostly like 5 to 10 years ago, where like I didn't trust that they actually meant the same things that I meant in a lot of situations.
Mm,
And I realize now that like a lot of that's just my own attachment issues. It's me just not actually explaining what I mean, not actually embodying what I mean, and then
yeah.
also not communicating and getting that from them. But then there's also the sense of, now that I've made some of these friendships where like when I hear that from somebody like Fractal or from you, like it resonates with me. in a way that like, yeah, it's also just a nice way to say that like I appreciate you as a person. Like it has a very casual use as well.
Mhm.
But there's a level of like, I know how deep love means to you people. Like I've read enough of your words and dug into your
Mhm,
mind at points that like
mhm,
I feel like I have a good sense that when you say that, you don't say it casually unless it's a casual need. Like it feels like there's the gravitas that I expect there. And so there's like a for me a dropping of that guard, especially where I definitely resonate with it more now and try to say it more. And it does, I catch myself feeling that like the inner voice being like, is this too sickly sweet? Like, are you just being like overly positive for no reason about this thing? Or
mhm.
like I have that inner commentary quite often. And often I have to be like, I start to almost engage it, and then I'm like, nope, we're saying it. Like that's even more reason for me to say it almost because it feels like a I really like Tashin's response about from long ago about like him saying love and like saying it in all versions. And I kind of feel the same way at this point, where it's like love has a very special, deep meaning to me. Like truly, we could hash that out for many hours. But I think more people just need to hear and need to feel that they are loved because it's such a deeply rooted aspect of what we are. And at the same time, for so many of us, feels so foreign and feels like just an abstract concept that we banter around and means absolutely nothing. And it's like, at least for me, and it feels like many other people, like that shit's way deeper than that, man. Like, and that's why it feels like I'm able to accept that because I feel like I trust that many of the people I hear it from have experienced that, or at the very least, like we're kind of in the same mental space about it, if that makes sense. But it's taken a lot of time, and a lot of it's been through friendships. Honestly, it's been through people that there is no romantic attachments, and there is no like worrying about what love could mean between us. Because I too felt that like love was a commitment feel. I still actually think I feel that way, and that's I got to sit with that more. I don't want to feel that way, and I don't think that way, but I think I still feel that way often, where love is like a commitment binding almost. And I kind of want to, I need to sit with that more, but it does feel like something that should flow more freely. And so that's part of why it does for me, is it's like, I gotta see more of this in the garden. So I'm gonna do more of it. And hopefully it doesn't lose its potency in the process.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm, mm,
I think that the world would be a better place if more people signaled love and more people received love. And
mm,
I don't know how to make that happen other than uh, boldly proclaiming my love, at the drop of a hat, and uh, doing what I can to be more open to receiving that proclamation of love, even in the ambiguity of words, right? Like I can't know what it means to you to say that you love me, you anyone.
mm,
Um, but I can know, I can take it on faith that we are engaging in some level of authentic interaction where you're speaking your truth, right? Like that is
mm,
that is that is a default orientation I have in the world, right? Like I
mm,
assume I take people at face value, and I don't. It would be weird for me to be like, oh, why are you
mm,
lying to me like that? What's going on, right? Like if someone's presenting to me a statement of love, I'm going to accept it to the best of my ability. Um, and yeah, like I think that is one direction that I want tomorrow's utopia to take. And yeah,
mm.
words are complicated, but and sometimes the manifestation of love is complicated, but also sometimes it's really fucking simple.
Yeah, I think that too. I've had a lot of simple friendship love. I've had a lot
Yeah,
of simple love, but so few of that has been romantic,
yeah,
and not many of it was familial either. Like a lot of those are not simple loves. My sister's one of the few, but even theirs like not not super easy. And
Mhm.
so having some like low maintenance, low cost. Like these are all like not words I wanted to be describing friendships, but like to get the idea of like feels like so little of me and yet gives so much in the interaction that it does kind of present that like yeah, I am going to take this at face value. And like when I get proven wrong, like I'll accept that and take it for what it is, and we'll go from there and then reassess. But especially with friendships, I think I am in that exact same mindset of like orientating myself to, I assume you are speaking your truth to the best of your ability, and I will try to listen and relate to the best of my ability, and I hope we find some really great common ground between us. And it's been pretty fucking fruitful so far, honestly. So, and I hope to expand that to romantic relationships, but God, that's its own nut to crack, So,
Yeah, so I'm chewing on this. I feel like this is helping me kind of like articulate an objection that I've had to like kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like love tweeting or something.
hmm.
Like the kind of where people like kind of just blast like, oh, I love you, or like remember that you were loved or whatever.
Mm.
My gut reaction every time is always like, how could you possibly know that? Like there's okay, I feel like there's like a model, like a sort of implicit model that people work with sometimes, where they think of love as like a substance or something, like a substance that one can like create and then give people, and that's what it
Mm.
means to like offer love to somebody. And it doesn't feel that way to me at all. Like I don't think of love as a substance in the slightest. Like love, like I don't think you can just like create like an industrial vat of love and then like pour it over. I mean, you have MDMA, which is kind of similar, but like
It was
I
the attempt, but
it
yeah,
was the attempt,
it's
but
not a substance.
like for me, like okay, if I had to like really try to articulate it, like love is like a kind of work that you can perform. Like work is not a great word for it either, but like for
Mm.
me, love has like a core aspect of attunement and knowing. Like in order to love something, I have to know something about it. Like I have to understand it in some way. I have to see it in some way. In order to love I feel like in order to love a person, in order for me to feel loved by someone, I have to feel seen and understood and like attuned to in some way.
Mm.
And so when there's just like a random tweet from a person I don't know that's like, remember that I love you. I'm like, who the fuck are you? You don't fucking know me. Like that's not whatever this is not love yet. Like you don't know me. I have not been attuned to in the slightest. Um, that feels really important to me. Like you have to actually do like like to me, it feels like you have to actually do the seeing. You have to do the attunements. And like this kind of like broad spectrum, I don't know, there's also this kind of like meta practice sort of, it's like, oh, imagine like sending love to people. I'm like, what does that mean without the attunement? It feels like I don't want to, I don't, it doesn't feel right to me to try to like skip the step where you attune to people.
Mm.
Anyway, that's some,
Hmm.
that's a rant off the top of my
No,
head.
that
But
resonates a lot.
yeah.
I mm. I think something interesting that came up while you were saying that was, I do think of love in some way as work, but I also think of love in lots of other ways.
Mm,
Um, and commitment is one still, so that's
mm,
one that I'm gonna suss out. But I also think of like the remember you're loved and the I love yous and the random things that feel kind of kitschy or cliche. I think of those as more like tiny mirrors to re-invoke the spark inside of you of that you are loved. And at the same time, like you have the ability to love back. And because it feels like so often it's more of like a fire that's died down, and so that's like a spark that of just in the world of, hey, remember that feeling. I finish a lot of my like really like juicy feely posts with, you are loved, you are loved, you are love. And it came from like it came from an MDA trip, but it was one of those moments of like recognizing that like I can love everything because I understand at least something about it all, because I am part of it all. And so like I don't have that deep understanding of a thing, and so I wouldn't have a level of attunement that maybe you're feeling in yourself that you need, which I would agree with to some degree. Like saying that to a person, I feel like I would need that level of attunement to some degree. But at the same time, I feel I could kind of say it to anyone at this point and really like deeply mean it. And like maybe they can't hear it the way I mean it, but I feel like I really do just love everyone in that way of like, God damn, it's so special that we're all doing this thing and we're all trying so fucking hard. And it is so fucking hard. And some people it's not hard. And it's crazy how different and varied and wonderful and weird and like all of those things conglomerate into like, I love it. I love the experience of it. And I love each and every one of you that are in it. And it's really hard to say all the time. It's honestly, I love that about Fractal, is how often and open he can be at saying that and expressing it, because I feel it. I feel it all the fucking time towards people, and it's really difficult to open it up and share it.
Mhm.
And so for me, it's much more of like a, in some ways, those moments are like a reminder for the other person, and for me even sometimes, a reminder of like how much it can mean to both of us to recognize that there is love between us. Maybe it's not like a relationship love that you're thinking of at an attunement level like that, where like you both have spent years and time together to do that, but it is like a, we're in this together. Like this is a thing that we are all doing, whether it's experiences, whether it's apes, whether it's cells all dancing around, or energies, like whatever it is, it's happening together, and God, it's fucking lovely. And I love that we're doing this together. And it's, again, difficult for me to almost not feel that all the time. It's just been more difficult to say it most of the time. And
Mhm.
so I kind of almost try harder when I feel the, don't say it, or it feels too kitschy. It's like, lean in, just lean into it. And that's been my kind of approach. And obviously that's not everybody's, but uh I guess I just think of love so much more broadly than just purely the attunement of two people where they're deeply linked souls feeling or something. It's like that is a great version of love, but it's like there's also, like, to me, capital L love covers so much, I guess. That makes sense.
All right, I want to dig. QC, do you are you internally calling bullshit on Faint's assertions of love?
Not exactly, but
Okay.
like
I do welcome them, by the way. It does help me like internally navigate that stuff. So,
there is a like so Faint, I appreciated that you expanded it out to like, oh, we're all in this together, we're all struggling, we're all like having a hard time, but we're all doing it, we're all like doing our best. Like that feels to me closer to a kind of like broad spectrum attunement. Like I
mhm.
think there's a like a big thing I try to do on Twitter is like uh I don't quite know how to describe this, but like I talk a lot on Twitter about just like times that I feel terrible and just like here's how terrible I feel about this thing.
Mhm.
And like there's a lot of different things I'm trying to accomplish when I do that, but one of those like on some level I am just trying to I like feeling heard and understood by other people, but also like a lot of that writing that I do is intended to help other people see themselves more clearly. Like to like I want to be able to write things about ways that I feel that have other people being like, oh, oh my God, I also feel that way. But like I've never been able to put words
Mhm.
to it until now. And and like I get comments like that from people who are like, wow, thank you for writing this. Like I feel like I really felt this. Like that to me is sort of the real work. The real work to me is like being able to say things that resonate so much with people that something opens up in them.
Mm.
That's the stuff that really gets me going. That's like really what I like doing. And to me, it like requires so much more effort than just saying I love you. Like this is like I don't even like saying it to put it in these terms, but like that's sort of my act of love to the world is
Mm.
very is trying hard to write things in such a way that they open people's hearts.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah,
That's
that and that
beautiful.
and that's sort of like my version of the thesis. Like yes, like it's I want to offer people a kind of love, and the way I try to do that does not involve using the word love, at least not very directly. uh, I try to I guess like meet people where they are and then like
Mm.
invite them into an experience of something that like
Yeah. Opens up the attunement that way.
yeah, that to me is
Yeah.
like one of the essential purposes of art or something like that. Like art is a way that we open people
Mm.
and like and there's a art there's like a great deal of skill and of like taste involved. Like one of the things that you can do when you spend a lot of time on Twitter, like I do, is you can kind of like try to get your try to get a sense of the zeitgeist, and try to get your pulse, and just like sort of what's out there in the like noosphere right now. Like what are people freaked out about? What are people upset about? What are people confused and anxious about? And then trying to sort of like shamanically like uh alchemize that into art that
Yeah.
can do something with all of those anxieties. This is I felt like the dating show at Camp, for example, was like a really interesting uh like version of this. Like to me it felt a lot like the show had kind of become us this like psychic sponge that like soaked up a bunch of like worries and fears and anxieties that were just kind of in the air, and I thought did something really cool and interesting with them. Like, and you know, I understand it didn't work for everybody, but it worked for me. I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is great. This is the kind of art that I want to see more of in the world. That's like really fun.
Mm.
Um, like the date, like that to me is like that's like more the kind of love that I mean when I talk about love, I guess, is that attempt to uh, not just attuned to an individual person, but attuned to like a community, or attuned to like sort of the world in some way. Like, okay, what are these guys feeling? Like, what are these people feeling? What's the whole world feeling? Like, where are we all at right now together? It's kind of like, and what can I say that like really
Mm.
speaks to that?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like. Do you have more? Sorry.
That's a good place to stop there.
Okay. That sounds like a really um in character way to express love for you, right? Like you who
Mm-hmm.
like focus so much on like your emotional work and your healing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that your expression of love is immersing yourself in the soup of the vibes, and then you know, bringing back a boon in the form of a writing art that you can give to the community.
Distilling. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like your pure expression right there.
I,
Thank you.
I think that my I'm gonna call it a rebuttal in the softest terms I can call it. I think I feel like you're limiting the definition of love, like big L love, because of the need to keep it that way for whatever reason. But to me, it's like that's a form of love that I like doing too. Is I like digging into the like the hurt shit that I've experienced, and being able to share that lived experience with people in a way that lets them go like, oh, you've experienced this too? And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, buddy. Get ready. There's lots of us that have done that. Like lots of us have fucked up in that way. Lots of us had those same issues or those same moments of fear and anxiety and worry. And so like I don't feel I can meet at your level with that. I don't have the same pulse on the zeitgeist like you do. I have a totally different perspective. And so a secondary way I feel that I can easily show that love is how easy it is for me to love the world. Loving people can be hard sometimes. It can be very hard. Um, Even loving people that I feel are easy to love natively has been hard for me at times, and I wrestle with that a lot. But loving the world has kind of always been really fucking easy for me. As a kid, like the all moments were really easy, and so that's kind of me just leaning into a place like my service to the world is in part that I can be a big tender heart care bear that shoots my fucking love chest to the world and goes, "Come get a fucking hug, man. Like, let's hug this shit out." And then I can start talking to you about some shit, but you know, I reach limits pretty quickly. But then it feels like those connections allow me to then push people to other places where they can find love in different forms that helps them integrate that part and distill down and maybe like see those other things. So I guess that would be my rebuttal, non-rebuttal is maybe don't limit the ways that you can express your love, but definitely lean into the ones that feel like love for you, that feel like the shit that you should be doing. Yes. And that's my advice to everyone. It's like if it feels like that, yes. But don't discount other options just because they look different. Just try them out a little. And like they don't have to feel good, but you know, try other ones then. There might be other ways that showing your love is really like a is deeply meaningful to you instead of feeling kitschy or you know dressing.
Mm. there's
if
probably some shit here. Sorry, just a quick like. There's probably some shit here like showing other people the forms of love that I felt like I was missing the most. There's probably
Oh,
that seems like a thing. There's
oh.
probably some shit.
There's,
There's probably
yeah.
some.
Yeah, you hit one there for
That
me.
sounds like some shit that I do. Yeah.
Mm. I am a card carrier of that club for sure.
Yeah.
The thing I need the most is usually the thing I over glom on someone else in the moment. And man, it usually doesn't work out well for me, I'll tell you. It has rarely worked out as well as I'd hope. So, mm,
Mhm.
mm, yeah.
There's always some shit like that.
But yeah, I think that's a big reason I was gravitated to you. You were probably the second or third like larger account I noticed on Twitter that was speaking to something inside me, and it
Mm.
was that speaking from a like, man, life can be feel or it can feel torturous sometimes. It can feel like you are being thrown through a grinder, and what's the fucking point? And like, if you don't have some of those foundational things, or if you don't have some of those signposts at different times that really like pull you away from that, it's so easy to then, for me, spiral. And then like everything else gets worse around me as I spiral. And
Mhm.
so feeling someone explain some of those moments and and elucidate some of the feelings behind some of those moments on their side just opened me up in other ways. So
Mm.
it's like we all need those different kinds. We also need those guys that walk out from their Airbnb and hug you, even though like there's no reason for them to. They're about to see you for 4 days. Like we also need the guys that are way too fucking loud and boisterous about this shit because like sometimes you need to hear it. Like you need to hear it. You're fucking loved, people. Like goddamn, I need to hear it. Like we need to hear more of that sometimes and
Mm,
feel it. That's
mhm,
the big thing.
mhm,
We need to feel it more. And I
mhm.
think the a great way of saying I can't remember which of you said it just now, but signaling and receiving love. We need more signaling love and more receiving love. I don't know what versions it comes in. Your version tends to be deep writing about deep zeitgeist of the feelings that are happening. Mine tend to be a little more mushy about my own experience and then back to the, but look at this. Pay attention. You'll notice there's still a lot of love in there. There's still a lot of good feeling in there. If you really look at it, don't just focus on the bad. It's still there. And I think we need all of that. We need all those versions. So, mm, mm,
Mm, mm, mm,
mm. Man, I'm gonna have to tell you I love you more. And then I'll start worrying about, does he actually think I mean it anymore? He probably doesn't.
mm.
Fuck. And then I'll spiral and then we just won't
Well,
talk for like 6 months.
it's not about whether you mean it, it's just like whether I can receive it, you know? It's like whether I can let it in. I guess I'm
Mm,
thinking now about like love languages in a sort of very broad sense, like not just the whatever the traditional set, but just this very broad sense of like different people have different love languages that they like are really receptive to or are really like starving for. And then
mm,
different people have different like forms of love that they enjoy giving that like feel good and right to them to offer. And then we can all kind of just like sort people can like
mm-hmm.
find the kinds of love that really resonate with them and can all be like little little team of love.
Team love. I'm on board. QC on Team Love someday.
Thanks.
Whoop, whoop. I appreciate that you consider it so earnestly and so deeply. That as someone else who felt for a very long time that most people didn't consider, especially feelings like that, like what does it mean to say you love someone, and what does that mean to you as a person when you say that to someone else, and
Mm,
it didn't feel like many people thought about that in my orbit.
mm,
And so especially seeing you write about those things and share like your initial bristling to it and I like reading that, like as much as I am very much on the side of like just say it constantly. I relish the fact that not everyone is that way, not
mm,
everyone receives that well, like it's not something that I can just force on other people too. That's part of why the TL is kind of nice, because it's like I'm posting it on a message board. You can come look at it, scroll right past it if you don't give a shit. If you really don't want to see it, block me. And then
mm,
it's like it kind of, for me it frees up the space of like I'm not pushing it too hard, but I
mm,
get what you mean when it feels like if it's the only thing being pushed, it starts to feel like an incomplete version of the person sometimes. I can definitely feel that in my own stuff. And that's sometimes where the voice inside is like, should you really say that? It feels overdone. It's like, well, you know, but I get that. It's difficult to navigate, I feel sometimes, but we each kind of have that where the love language feels easiest to push. And so it's like, push, you know, we need more of it out there. So push.
Mhm.
Mm, mm.
What's going on, Frac?
Thinking about love.
Thinking about love.
Thinking about love. I what I was hearing from you, how I would synthesize the conversation is as such.
Mm.
We all um, um, pump out love because we are energetic oscillators and we send waves out through the medium. And what I think I heard Phaent talking about was like we started with an assertion of love as like AM radio, right? Where it's like staticky and it bounces off the atmosphere and it's just like fucking everywhere, but it's just like a low bandwidth signal that's not particularly interesting to you,
Mhm.
QC, or to many other people or whatever. And you were saying, well, you haven't, your love hasn't X-rayed me. I do not, I haven't been attuned to, I am not receiving it. And like I also imagine you as wearing a lead apron like you get at a dentist's office. Like, no, I'm not gonna let you X-ray me, not until like we go through the
Mm.
long and laborious process, and like loving process perhaps, but like there is a long process to like first I'm doing this job and then I'm doing this job and then I'll think about this one, like maybe and like I think there's definitely a lot of value in all of us being comfortable in our own ways and wanting to be loved in our own ways and the love languages, et cetera, et cetera. And we're also in a sea of EM radiation all the goddamn time at every fucking frequency imaginable, right? So like if people want to blast out AM love, like there are people who want to tune into that shit. And like
Mm.
good for them, they get their love. And from what we've talked about in the past and also what we're talking about here, like love for you, little L, big L, whatever, like is a big deal and it's like a major undertaking and it requires perhaps rigorous safety protocols and like handshakes and navigations and et cetera, et cetera. And like, yeah, like absolutely, you should get the love that you want and are equipped to receive and want to receive in the
Hmm.
particular way that you have receptors for it. And like it felt like Faint was talking about, I don't know, kind of like microwaves, right? Where he's just like blasting it out, but like, it's penetrating some ways. Yeah, like we're all doing our things. And I don't know. I don't think I've thought about this metaphor ever. So like there might be nothing behind it, but yeah, like I really like the idea of you uh, saying something like, you haven't plumbed the depths of my interiority. I will not accept. Like that is not true love to me. And like fucking cool. Like let's
Yeah.
what happens when someone X-rays you and you feel touched? Like that's gonna
Yeah.
be baller.
Then I just cry all day. Just all the crying. Just completely dissolve into a pool.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've definitely oscillated too in the ways that I show it. And I think I've probably like as much as I'm like vehemently for the showing it more actively to the world so that the world feels it. In some ways that is like a reminding myself to do it. Like it's as I'm doing it as a reminder to myself that that is a thing in the world that is existing and I should be aware of it. I should be aware of this EM field that I'm normally not kind of thing. So in some ways it is like a almost like a cope in that way of like putting it out there is a I'm out there too. I'm part of the out there. So I need to hear those things that I write on the TL most of the time. I think that's probably most of us on the TL is
Yeah.
writing things that we need to hear ourselves.
Writing things that we need to hear.
Um,
Yeah,
yep.
for sure.
And so I really do love how many, because like we're all so plural in ourselves that it's like it's really hard to get it all from one person anyway. And this is goes all the way to romantic stuff too, but especially from like the different ways we need those EM fields, to use Fractal's analogy, is like you need all those different ways. You're not going to be completely resonant with anything like that. It's just really, or it's really difficult to, I should say. I'm
Mhm.
sure there are people like the up the levels. And so it feels like as I've shifted, sometimes it's because I need different or I feel different. And so like for sure that's happening, but also like I can get it from lots of different sources, and people also change over time. And so I'm going to have to, go different ways at different times. And that whole interplay sort of feels like the whole point. Like it sort of feels like the relational point of it is to like find those ways that we can help nurture each other's gardens while also not pouring any poison over the fence of my own into someone else's. And
Mhm.
that's basically karma, but that to me has always felt very apt of like tending to your own garden while also putting in a little work for the communal garden, because it's all basically a communal garden. And so that's why it feels like it's got to come from multiple hands, man. It can't just be me screaming I love you to everyone, because eventually they're all going to kick me in the nuts, and I'm not going to care. So I'm going to be like, I don't love you anymore, actually. So yeah, we need all the different versions for sure. Mm.
Yeah, I really appreciate all this that you guys are saying. Like, this is, yeah, this feels like it's good, nuanced reflections on. This actually feels like a good place to stop. How do you guys feel about, like, I kind of like stopping on this
Yeah,
note. Yeah,
this does feel like a
here's
good
like a
place.
whole thesis on love and
Yeah,
the
love and friendship and
the many splendored thing that is love. That's
mm,
it's like a nice place to, yeah.
it is such a wild thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
You guys have any like closing comments for our audience here?
Mm.
For the audience of the people here in this Zoom room with me, I will say that I may be uh, uh, the wrong energy levels to penetrate you, and I might like be scattering off your hard exterior shell, or like I might be not gooey enough, or slightly too kiki or whatever. But like to the extent that I know both of you, I love both of you, and I am so pleased that you are both in my life, digital or not, and I'm really glad that
Hmm.
we were here and had a good time. Or I'm glad that we were here and I had a good time. I'm not gonna say
I
anything for you.
yeah, I will 100% mirror that statement. I To the extent that you can accept my words of I love you, I love both of you deeply. I'm so glad that you're in my life.
Oh,
It has been a wonder to meet you people, and it's friendships, man. They're fucking magic. They
it's
really
magic.
are.
That's what I'm
They
gonna call
really
this
are.
video. It's gonna be great. That's what we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
All
Mm.
right. Well, yeah, thank you both of you for agreeing to this. I really appreciate you being here and everything that we talked about. I appreciate and value you guys. I will be more
Thank you.
specific. And I'm glad we met, and I'm glad we got to bro out at Vibecamp and at the Airbnbs, and I'm glad we got to bro out here, and I look forward to more of that.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Me too. Oh yeah.
All right,
All right.
cool. This feels like I'm gonna